Well, good evening, everybody. I don't know if this is working. I'm trying to check it out to see if it is. Oh, I guess I am. I'm live now. I've been having internet issues still. It's horrible. All day. I guess I'm live now. So, we'll see how this works out. It'll work for me or not, I don't know. I'm trying to get these messages. Technology's not cooperating. Anyway, I got some good news. I got my part for my car, so I'm going to try to put that on tomorrow and see if I can get that fixed. And my sister's probably getting on the hospital tomorrow too, so that's a good thing. She hadn't got her surgery yet, but she's gonna have to get that done. But they're gonna send her home with home health, so hope she's doing better with the infection that she got for the moment, anyway. So where are we at tonight? We are in 1 Chronicles 18. And this message is David's divine expansion, establishing the kingdom through fruits and spoils. So in this chapter, it's this chapter is pretty much this account of a bunch of David's military victories when he first started to establish the kingdom, and and it's consolidation of the kingdom's power that after, just right after the God's covenant promise to him in the previous chapter, and it focuses on these successful campaigns that David did against the surrounding nations, uh, and so it emphasizes that his success was ultimately, you know, uh, um, because of divine favor and God's sovereignty at work. Ah, Kush! I forgot to put him again. We'll see if he stops. Hush! There's the dog. Anyway, I'm probably going to have to put him inside. I hope that the internet's going to die on me in the process. But give me a second. Come on here. Get in here. Get here. Come on, please, buddy. You're free. Come here. Come here. I'm back. Lord, nothing wants to cooperate today. The internet, the dog. What's next? I don't know. Anyway, here we go. We're back again. Alright, this chapter shows that David was acting as a devout ruler by dedicating. He in this chapter he demonstrates these spoils of war to the Lord that he gets, and he also any resources that he gets from any of the allies and things. He dedicates everything he gets, anything that anybody gives him as a gift or he gets as a result of conquest. He dedicates to the Lord. Um, this show, he wanted to establish this righteous administration that, and therefore he knew that the Lord was responsible for his success and everything that he got because of that success. He wanted to give it back to the Lord, dedicate it to the Lord. So, um, God pretty much grants him these victory after victory, to expand this kingdom. Um, and the first thing is David defeats the Philistines. Um, these were Israel's longtime enemies, and he went and he took control of this place called Gath and its these surrounding towns, and this was a demonstration of David fulfilling this role as the anointed king who brought security and peace to Israel. Since these were these longtime enemies that of Israel's that he was finally able to subdue. And then he goes about the conquest of this neighboring nations. Um, he defeats the Moabites and makes them pay tribute to him. And he also goes and he defeats um, the Hadadezer, which is the king of Zobah, and seizes like his entire infantry, his chariots. He takes all his equipment for war. He takes all this stuff, and then he defeats the Assyrians in Damascus, and who had came to Hadazer's aid, and so he defeated them and their helpers, and and he also makes them subject to him and makes them pay tribute. And in this chapter, we see this repeated phrase um, that says that the Lord gave victory to David wherever he went, and this was showing this was God's sovereignty. God, God was the reason that David was able to secure these victory after victories because God had made this covenant promise with David, and this was the covenant was being fulfilled. Every victory that he achieved was directly related to this covenant. And so David takes um, this all this gold and bronze, all this all the equipment, shields, all the stuff that he gets, all the spoils of war that he gets in these campaigns from defeating these enemies, and even some of the brass and stuff that he has used. It says that this brass is used by Solomon, his son, to build the brass and sea that's at the temple. And so David is just amassing all this wealth of treasure and resources through these campaigns and these victories that will later be used in this kingdom to build this kingdom. So he's gathering resources at this point. And but this underscores this connection between this uh, military successes he was having and the preparation for the later worship that was to come. And they were gonna use this stuff to build the temple, and it would directly be part of their worship in the future. Then David um, starts, he starts to get recognition, and but even in his recognition, he's still dedicated to the Lord. He doesn't falter, and he still, he knows why he's being lifted up, and there's this other king that the king of Hamath sends his son Hadaram to congratulate David and bring him a gift of gold, silver, and bronze to recognize him. And because these enemies that David was defeating was like their mutual enemies. And so this is an alliance that this king has come to say, well, David's defeating this. He's defeating our. These are mutual enemies of ours. We're going to create this alliance between us and give him a gift. As a symbol of my gratitude and as my as part of this alliance that we're going to form. But it also signifies, the prestige and this influence that David's kingdom was having at this time among the other nations. That this other king was coming and giving gifts to David. And so, as I said, David dedicates all the stuff that he gets, all the stuff, the spoils of war, and the tributes that's given, the gifts and things that's given to him by his allies, even. Those are uh, that's why it's called fruits and spoils. The spoils come from his conquest, but the fruits came from his creating these alliances and the work that he was doing to bring about um, peace as well. Um, so this reiterated his commitment to honoring God and serving. He dedicated all this to the Lord that it was going to be used for the temple eventually, because David knew that Solomon was going to build the house. David knew that he had to be, he'd soon start establishing this kingdom, and that it was going to be Solomon that was going to build the Lord's house. Lord Solomon would build the temple, and that from David there was this dynasty that the Lord's house would or this throne that would reign forever, that would be ultimately filled through his descendant, which would be Jesus, the Messiah. So David knew this was just preparation. He was just preparing for the things that Solomon would do to uh, further the kingdom, and then those after him would be able to do. So this showed David was being a steward. This was stewardship. Um, because David acknowledged that God was the true source of his wealth and his power. He wouldn't have any of it if it wasn't for God. So why not dedicate it to God, give it to God, give God what is his. This Bible, Jesus said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God's. If God gives it to you, you shouldn't have no problem with giving it back to God. Or giving him what is rightfully his to begin with. He just puts it in your hand to steward. So then David goes about and defeats the Edomites in the Valley of Salt, and puts garrisons up in Edom, and makes the Edomites his subjects too. So and that it's repeated, as I said again. This in verse 13, verse 6 of verse 13 repeats the same thing about the Lord gave David victory wherever he went, because it was the Lord's doing, and David was just the steward. He was just the vessel. He was just the hand by which it came, but it was the Lord's might that did it. So, at the end of the chapter, remember, we see that David's reign is summarized as as governing all Israel in ministering justice and righteousness for all his people. This demonstrates that David's authority was not just military, but was also characterized by godly governance and internal integrity. David had a good heart, and David was honest, and David, I mean, he wanted to do the right thing by the Lord, and he wanted to govern the people well, the way the Lord wanted him to do. So, you know, that's what he had heart to do. And that was who David was, because he loved the Lord. The chapter concludes by listing David's chief officials. It shows Joab as the commander of the army, and Jehoshaphat as a chronicler, and Zadok and Amalek as priests, and David's sons as chief officials, showing the establishment of an organized and functioning kingdom administration. So this chapter is a pivotal part of the organization of this administration of this kingdom, David's kingdom. It's, it's becoming well established at this point. And so, in this chapter, the biblical narrative uh, is the fulfillment of God's covenant promises, or as it's recorded as this is the fulfillment of God's covenant promises to Abraham, which the land from the river of Egypt to the Euphrates, and established the earthly kingdom of the Davidic line. David's victories secure the nation and accumulate the materials for the temple, linking his kingship directly to God's dwelling place. So this is important because this interim period between it, God has established this covenant, this Davidic line, which is the fulfillment of the promise to Abraham. He promised Abraham this Davidic covenant with David, and that his son will build the house and the temple, and this is fulfilling uh, that portion. And then now David will be the next step in the line toward fulfilling the prophecy that is part of the Davidic covenant, which that Jesus will come from David's line. And Jesus, of course, becomes the ultimate dwelling place for God. Um, um, Jesus talks of himself as I will tear down this temple and rebuild it in 3 days. When he talks of his death and his resurrection, um, that Jesus himself is the temple and the dwelling place of God, and thereby through Jesus we become the temple, the dwelling place of God, because Jesus comes to live inside of us. So that's when it talks about not dwelling in temples made with human hands, not with temples of wood and stone. That's the fulfillment of um, that prophecy of what would happen through Jesus becoming the ultimate temple and the ultimate dwelling place, and then us as a result. So the chapter uh, is a powerful foreshadowing of the gospel through David's role as a type of Christ. David, the victorious king, subdues all enemies and establishes a kingdom of justice and righteousness, providing peace and security for his people. This points forward to Jesus Christ, the Son of David, who defeats the ultimate enemies, sin, Satan, and death, not through earthly warfare, but through his death and resurrection. Jesus establishes an eternal spiritual kingdom where he reigns with perfect justice and grants true and lasting peace. And as far as our spiritual growth, this chapter highlights two key principles: trusting in God's sovereignty and godly stewardship. How we are entrusted with certain things and how God expects us to maintain or how uh, to use the resources which He provides. David's success is attributed entirely to God's favor, which teaches believers to trust in divine strength over human might. One part of this was David, when he took his chariots and the horses and everything from his enemies, there was a lot of them. And David killed some of the horses. He limited the amount that he would have. He could have had a bigger army. He could have had more, but he limited them because I think it was the fact that he knew at that point that he didn't need it. And it would have been more of a expense to keep those things than, uh, to have a big army. It's more expensive to have a big army. It's more manpower, more things, needed to have a big army than a smaller army. And if you're not needing that big of an army yet, it was a smarter military decision, I think, in a way. But, um, it was just, he was wisely stewarding what God gave him, and he was not just trying to be all pomp and circumstance and say, hey, I got all these horses, I got all these chariots, and show them off and stuff. He was making wise decisions with what God gave him. So, uh, David's dedication of all the spoils to the Lord demonstrates that true prosperity is found in recognizing that everything we possess is a gift from God. It should be consecrated to His service and glory, especially in preparation for His greater work. As I said, if God gives you, whatever God gives you is specifically um, for a purpose that He has something that He needs you to do with it. Um, if you have talents, God gave you those talents to use for the purpose of building, establishing, and 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 maintaining and the kingdom. He gave you that for the purpose of the kingdom, for the good and benefit of the kingdom and of His people, and He meant for you to use it for that purpose. The same thing goes with wealth, with power. Wealth, money, material substance, anything. Your time, anything that God gives you, your physical health, all of it is given for a purpose that is ultimately for the work of the kingdom. So, our job is to steward it properly in that purpose and in that effort, just like David did. God will bless it, like God blessed David and gave him victory after victory. So he was doing his work. So, anyway, I hear them frogs. Big old bullfrog over there. Well, I guess that's it for tonight. It didn't get dark on me this time. And the internet, I guess, has been working alright. It's a miracle. The Lord was with us. I love y'all. I'll see y'all tomorrow.